Hey everyone, I'm music journalist Thomas Mooney, and you are listening to New Slang. We close out the week with episode 113 with singer-songwriter Colter Wall. It was awful nice catching up with Colter a couple of weeks back, and as you're probably aware by now, Colter has a new album coming out next week called Western Swing Waltzes and Other Punchy Songs. It's officially out Friday, August 28th. As you'd expect, we talk a lot about the new album, which he recorded down at Yellow Dog Studios in Wimberley, Texas. He self-produced the 10-track album, and I think we really see a different side of Colter with this album. Obviously, with Imaginary Appalachia, his self-titled full-length, and Songs of the Plains, there were distinct moods and tones to those songs and albums. Especially with those first two, they were so rich with these dark tones, they were bold, and there was a starkness to them, both sonically and lyrically. A lot more murder ballads, a lot more of that gravelly baritone being a tour de force. And there's still a lot of that on the album Songs of the Plains, but you also see Colter starting to drift further west with more cowboy ballads and trail songs, which just feel more naturally light and airy. And this new album sees Colter fully embrace those western tinges and working cowboy themes. You feel that organic, fun-loving nature of Western Swing Waltzes. I hate to describe it as being less serious in both subject and feel, but you can definitely feel Colter and company cutting loose on this album. You really pick up on Colter's sense of humor both lyrically and then just kind of how he frames a song. On some of the songs, they're bookend by conversation and comments, and that's such a simple technique, but it adds to the atmosphere of the album. As I told Colter, the record feels like you've stepped out of your living room for a minute, and when you return, they're in there setting up and they're already passing a guitar around and trading songs and stories. I've really enjoyed this new one with Colter, and I think you will too. Western Swing Waltzes and Other Punchy Songs is out next week, but if you want a little preview, go check out the two songs Colter has already released from the album, the opening Western Swing Waltzes and the classic Stan Jones ballad Cowpoke. Today's presenting sponsor is Desert Door Texas Sotol. If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm from the heart of West Texas and absolutely love everything about West Texas, and that's really why I love Desert Door so much. You may be asking yourself what exactly Sotol is. Well, it's a premium spirit that's similar to a tequila or a mezcal, but for my money, it's a little bit more refined and smooth. There's a sweetness and faint hints of vanilla and citrus, and it's also as versatile as your garden variety vodka. At its core, Desert Door is authentically West Texas. They go out and harvest Sotol plants from the wild and bring them back to their distillery over in Driftwood, Texas. So next time you're at your local liquor store, get a bottle of Desert Door. For more info, check this episode's show notes. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly suggest hitting that subscribe link. If you just did, I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. New Slang is over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and basically any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go check out the New Slang merch store, grab a koozie, some stickers, buttons, and magnets. Any bit helps. I'll throw a link into the show notes. And if you're into playlists, go check out Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee and the Neon Eon playlists over on Spotify. The Neon Eon is for all your nostalgic 90s country needs, which there's going to be more Neon Eon related stuff coming your way pretty soon. And then Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee is a regularly updated mix of new Americana and country music. It's also a really great hint at who I have coming up on the podcast. So yeah, go follow those. All right, that's enough for this intro. Here is Colter Wall. So, yeah, man, you've been kind of holding up on a ranch out here in Texas all this time.
Yeah, I mean, not the whole time. I guess not since all this shit hit the fan necessarily. The last gig I played was in February, and it was the San Antonio Rodeo. I guess, yeah, that would have been, I don't know, February I think towards the end of February. I can't even remember, but that was the last gig that I had. And since then, I've mostly been sitting still. But I did venture out to a good friend of mine's place. He's got a little ranch outside, just south of Elgin, Texas, kind of, I guess, south central Texas, not too far from Austin. But I got a buddy that's got some property out there. He's actually got a bunch of different properties sort of all around the state, but he lives out there in this little camp that he's got set up in one of his ranches. And I'll go out there and bug him for, a few months at a time out of the year and try to help around and drink a lot of beer and stuff. So I figure, this is as good a time as any to take advantage of those kinds of relationships and just go hold up and, so pretty easy to social distance, as they say, when you're out in the country. So
yeah, when there's
I enjoy it. I like being able to get away out there. I got a few different buddies like that sort of spread around the States and Canada that I like to go and kind of just loaf around their place for a while,
Yeah, when there's more head of cattle than heads of people out there, it's easy to, social distance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the life goal, really.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, like I've noticed, speaking with everyone during this time, it's been the people who have found other things to occupy their time, to keep busy, that have been taking this space, this pause, the best. Obviously, you've been, like you said, you've been out on these out in the country, kind of just helping around and all that kind of stuff. What have you done on the artistic side? Has this space been beneficial to writing in any capacity?
Well, the way that this is sort of all shook out here is we were planning on putting out this record right around now, which of course we're still going to do. I think the original plan was maybe to have it out a little earlier, kind of around the spring, but it got pushed back, obviously, a little bit because of this deal, but mostly just because we kind of had to get our ducks in a row, so to speak. But the way that my brain works, and I can't speak for everyone that writes songs, but I can speak for me. And the way that my brain works is I have a hard time writing anything when I know that I've still got a record that is yet to come out. When I got a record sort of on the docket. That's just, I guess it just takes up a lot of that, the song part of my brain, for lack of a better term. It kind of just takes that up, and I spend more time just thinking about the songs that I've already got recorded and waiting to put them out there. And then, after the release is sort of typically when I'll stop worrying about it and start thinking about the next thing. And I've done a little bit of writing during this time, the whole Corona thing. I've gotten a little bit done, but not much, just because, every time I make a record, it seems to go like this, where I kind of just I don't do a whole lot of writing until the thing's finally out there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so strange because, I think the entire time, if you ask the average artist, what do you need more of to be a better songwriter, most of them are going to say, "Oh, I could if I just had more time to write." And then, of course, right now, this happens, and then it's like, "Well, here's some time to write," and then all of a sudden, you feel like this weird, strange pressure. You know what I mean? It's because it just changes everything that how you've written before. And I don't know. I found like a lot of people have done other things, from gardening to painting to whatever else.
Yeah.
And
well, I think oftentimes, and I guess it depends what kind of songs you write or what kind of writing you're doing in general. I think a lot of times find something else to do is often the key. If you sit down every day and just try to write, I guess there's probably some people out there that can do that and just sit down and force themselves to write a song. But it don't really work that way for me. I like to, my best stuff, I think, usually comes from when I'm in the middle of doing something else and I get an idea or get a line or whatever. It might be melody, whatever. But I think that's, it's crucial for my whole songwriting process or whatever you want to call it. I've got to find other stuff to do to occupy my brain. And then usually it's just some kind of, it can be anything, just some kind of manual labor working with your hands is kind of what does it for me. And then that's sort of where I start to freeze up the mind a little bit. I think, if you're just sitting around, it's real easy to overthink. I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. So I get it. I think, the best thing for anyone to do right now is, just take advantage of this time that we got now where, a lot of people can't work. This whole thing has been, I think is affected in the least, the people who are least affected by this whole virus is, and the way that it sort of shut down a lot of jobs for people are producers, and people that live in the country, people that, whether they're raising crops or livestock or whatever, their lives are pretty much the same because they're already isolated and, you can't shut down. I guess you would call them essential jobs, but, they're working for themselves and the crops and the cows don't know about, the corona, and they don't know about the global shutdown and all this other stuff, but people got to be fed,
Yeah. So, that's what I was going to say is the cows still need to be fed.
Sorry, you were breaking up there just a little bit.
No, I was just saying that's exactly what I was going to say is like, at the end of the day, cows need to still be fed and watered and crops need watering and, they don't stop.
Yeah. Those people are all still working. And I don't think a lot of, just from what I've seen on the news and social media, those kinds of folks who, are the sort of people that that I look up to most for the most part are producers. And I think a lot of people, from what I've seen on the news and whatnot, don't realize that those people are still working, man. They hadn't stopped. They work day in and day out. And I hope that for maybe folks that don't know and that are a little more ignorant to, where food comes from, I hope that they'll maybe be a little more appreciative because it certainly seemed like over the past few years there's been a lot of attacks on agriculture, and that whole industry has been sort of scrutinized by a lot of people that I don't think really know what they're talking about. So I hope that this whole thing gives some folks a deeper appreciation for the producers of the world and the folks that are raising the crops and stock and everything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the beginning of this, I had a conversation with a buddy about, so much of our economy is tied to a global economy. And I was hoping that maybe there would be one of the effects out of this that we were able to, a positive out of this was realizing that being local or regional, would be way more beneficial. We need to kind of go back to having more where you get more of your stuff locally, and hopefully you seek out those people who are growing stuff or just making stuff locally, more so because, we all kind of laughed about the toilet paper kind of thing, but if you if you bought locally, if they were like if every state had for just the comic relief on this is if every state had like a toilet paper factory, there wouldn't have been nearly as much of a cry for it, So apply that to everything else.
It's true. I mean, you're right on the money there, man. Another thing I've noticed during all this is I've seen a lot of people reaching out and trying to try to tell people about, hey, you can buy local beef. And I guess this is from more the cattleman side of it, because as we've talked about before, that's a big interest of mine. And I've got a small herd myself back home, but there's been a lot of folks that I know that raise cattle, and they've been getting on social media and everything else, and hey, all you got to do is call us, text us, email. If you want a side of beef, whether you want a side or whether you want a couple ribeyes or something, just reach out and we can get it to you. You don't have to go to the Walmarts, and you don't have to go to the Kroger and all that if you want some local stuff. And I'd like to see more of that sort of thing happening. Because you look at, now more than ever, it's the world of beef and the cattle industry. It's more evident than ever, and it's been this way for a long time, that people can't get enough of it right now, and especially when everyone was really stocking up on stuff, and you'd go to the grocery store and it would be just completely empty because people were stocking their fridges and freezers with meat and with food. The demand for it was so high, but the cattle market was still shit, like it's been for so long, and that has to do with packers and the way that whole industry works, and the monopoly of the packing industry and all that. But I guess I hope to see more people realizing that we can get all the stuff that we buy normally from the big grocery store or wherever. We can get it locally, and it's better quality, and we know where it's coming from, and hopefully that's just talking about silver linings with this whole thing. I hope more people kind of get wise to that, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case. I think when everything's just so much better if you buy locally. As you said, you know where it's from. You know what, if you know the person doing something too, like that, just that one-on-one relationship. If there's trust in the bond. I wanted to talk to y'all one more time about our new partners at Desert Door and offer up a handful of my favorite ways to drink it. Get you a Mexican Coca-Cola, have a couple of swigs, then pour yourself some Desert Door Oak aged in, toss in a lime wedge or two, or how about this? Pour some Desert Door into a mug, top off the glass with some ginger beer, squeeze in a lime, or for all you ranch water drinkers out there, get you a Topo Chico, take a couple of pulls off, and then pour in some Desert Door. Toss in a couple of lime wedges, and now you have a mighty tasty and refreshing ranch water. Remember, Sotol is as versatile as vodka and has a more refined, smooth, and a more complex palate than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whatever your go-to drink is, it'll make it that much better. And again, it's inherently West Texas. It tastes like home. For more info on Desert Door, check our show notes. All right, that's it for Thomas Mooney's Cocktail Minute. Let's get back to the show. As you mentioned, you like being around. You're interested in all this kind of the agricultural side of the Americas. And this record right here that you have coming out, all those songs really tie back to being on ranches and being on open frontier and plains. And you recorded this down in Wimberley, and I know you've done a couple of things down there, that single, and you had that one song on that Texas Cotton movie. Is that where your first tie was with Yellow Dog and Adam?
Yeah, that would have been my first time recording there. I had been there previous to that. I had been over there just sort of to hang out with some friends of mine, and really just love the space. It's a beautiful spot they got out there. It's right on the Blanco River in middle of the hill country, Texas hill country. It's real pretty, and it's not too far from Wimberley, but far enough that you're definitely in the sticks a little bit out there, and I kind of just fell in love with that place pretty quick, and I really like Adam, and I really like his the way that he goes about setting up sessions and just working out of that studio. And but yeah, the Texas Cotton thing was the first time that I'd recorded there. I believe I'd been there once or twice before, just hanging around, But it was kind of a no-brainer for this one. I really wanted to take the reins on this record, and as far as production, but also just as far as, you know, the people playing on it. And I kind of I wanted to make it the kind of thing where you get the band and bring everybody down there together and sort of just bunk up there for the better part of a week and play and get through the day or work till it starts to get late, and then go down the river and, you know, have a beer and a smoke and grill something up and just sort of, we really kind of all treated it like a vacation, even though we were working hard and getting, you know, lots of different cuts in during the day. But man, it was a blast. I wish I could go back and do it again.
Yeah. There's like a looseness to the record, and I mean that in like a good way. Like you can tell y'all are kind of cool. You guys are having fun, and you guys, there's a couple of songs where you leave them. They're not like you leave some of the background noise from the front of the song or the back of the song or both, and I think all those things like add to a certain mood of the record being.
I think so too.
Not too serious or anything.
I appreciate you saying that. You know, some of my favorite albums are. I love all the '70s, late '60s, '70s stuff that Jerry Jeff and the Gonzo Band did, and you can. I mean, I've always said that there's no better example of audible fun. You know,
yeah.
You can hear those guys having a blast. You can hear it. It's all in there, and there's that sort of looseness, and it just sounds like. I mean, it's a great band, and they're killer players. But beyond that, it just sounds like, you know, nobody's looking at the clock thinking like, oh, well, you know, we got to get out of here soon because we only paid for this many hours. They're just hanging out probably in somebody's house or wherever and having fun, man, and goofing around. And that's, that was sort of the mentality I wanted to take in there because, you know, this band is the band I recorded this with, is with the exception of, I guess a relatively new drummer. There are a bunch of guys that I've known for a while, and I'd like to think we're a pretty easygoing bunch most of the time. So it just felt right to sort of go in with that mentality of, hey, let's just have fun and let's leave weird stuff in this record and you know, let's try to get some of that good time feeling on tape if we can.
Yeah. No one was having more fun than Jerry Jeff back in the '70s.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those guys were. Most of my favorite records have things like that. You know, there's a great album, Ramblin' Jacks, that not a lot of people know, called Bull, Durham, Saxon Railroad Tracks, and I think Charlie Daniels produced it. And they leave all kinds of weird stuff on there, man. Like, there's a whole track that's just Jack messing around with this tape echo effect and doing impressions and goofing around with the studio guys. Everybody's laughing, and they just left it on the record. You know, a lot of guys would, you know, cut that out, I guess, and sort of clean it up. But I like hearing that sort of thing. To me, that makes it more of a personable experience, you know. So
yeah,
we tried to take a little bit of that and get that sort of same feel or something close to it, I guess.
Yeah, leave some of that personality on them, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you go back and whenever Charlie Daniels died, I went back and I knew he had done a couple of records with Bob Dylan and on some Leonard Cohen stuff, but I went back and was looking through, and man, you look at his credits, he's like you said, that Ramblin' Jack record. There's a lot of people that you'd be kind of surprised that what records he was on, you know.
Yeah, there's a quote from somebody that said, you know, Charlie, no matter what he was doing, whether he was playing on a record, producing it, or what, if Charlie was in the control room of the studio, then you knew it was going to be fun. Mm-hmm. And you knew it was going to sound great. And I can't remember who said that, but I remember reading that somewhere, someone talking about, you know, just him being around for sessions, whether he was picking on them or whether he was just around, you know. But you knew it was going to sound really good, and knew that it was going to be a lot of fun. And man, I love that. I was listening to a bunch of his stuff, and of course stuff that he had played on other people's. Whenever heard about his passing. We were all, I don't remember what we were doing that day. Me and my bud were out on the ranch, and definitely had sort of it's a solemn thing anytime one of those greats dies. You can't help but get a little down, but then it also can be great because you go back and listen to stuff that I hadn't listened to in a really long time, or maybe stuff I'd almost half forgotten about records and certain particular songs or B-sides or stuff like that,
Yeah, for sure. And there's also like this, I think like you always kind of, especially guys from the past, since you get their entire catalog at once, since you weren't really around when it was being released, you kind of get the sense that like, these guys, you started out real young and it was just Charlie Daniels when he was young. And that's really not the case. There's these like, he started out as a studio guy and, then like became part of a guy in a band kind of thing. And then like, finally had some success as a solo artist. And when you kind of go back and listen to someone's career like that, you get more context and more appreciation for the struggle of it all, the hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things.
Yeah,
go ahead.
There was one. I'll tell you this real quick.
Yeah.
But that day, the day that Charlie died, and when I was reading about it, I just remember this. That night, whenever we finished up doing, we were probably fixing fence or something. I don't remember, but we were doing whatever it is we were doing, and we called up we have a mutual friend, Mike Beck, who me and my friend do, and I recorded one of his songs a while ago called Happy Reunion. He's a great songwriter and a really cool dude, and he's just one of them guys that's got a story for everything. And he knew everybody at one point, and of course he's immediately like, "Oh man, I ever tell you my Charlie Daniels story?" Which is he always starts his stories like that. Did I ever tell you this? And then you just kind of lean back and let him go for about an hour. Kind of like, I guess he'd be like Ramblin' Jack in that sense, that you just sort of sit back and listen to this crazy story. And he does this whole thing about, I won't do the whole story because we'll be here for too long, but he told this whole story about going to Nashville and wanting to play lead guitar for somebody in somebody's band. I can't remember when he said it was, but I guess he went up to Charlie used to have a little ranch of his own up on Mount Juliet outside of Nashville. And I guess Mike went there looking for a gig, and Charlie figured out that Mike was kind of a bit of a, he has the whole California look to him and the whole buckaroo thing, and wanted to get him in the arena to rope some shit, show him the roping some shit. And he said he dragged him in there, and they were roping like these green colts or something, and that was Charlie's way of getting these like green ass colts real gentle, was to rope the shit out of them, I guess. But he told it ended up being a great day because we just sat with the Mike tell this great story about Charlie Daniels. Man, I didn't even know that you met the guy. And like, oh yeah, he was real surly, but and he was like yelling at the ranch manager and all kinds of stuff. But anyhow, it ended up, it was sad whenever we heard the news, but I got a great story out of it and got to go back and dig through some really, really good music.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was so funny about all that too, is like, I think at the end of the day, like Charlie Daniels was always Charlie Daniels. Like no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no put on there. That's just the way that guy was, man. He was wild and nobody liked him. All them old guys, man, they were so unique. And even, certain guys that you might seem to be similar, they were all so unique, and then they just don't make them like that anymore, I guess, which is cliche, but damn it, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. There's it feels like in a way, like even just 40 years ago, sometimes you get that sense of that Wild West in people where, it's not so, well, we got to be so formal about everything. These guys kind of just came from a different time where it was a little bit more loose, a little bit more just, a little bit more fun. I don't know, not necessarily fun.
Yeah.
It's fun now too, but you know what I'm
Well,
saying.
you know, I think a lot of it, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this sort of thing, but you know, nowadays you got a lot of new artists that they come out on whatever scene and they start to get a little bit of attention. They sign record deals, and these record label folks, you know, I don't care whether it's, you know, some little independent label or Universal or Warner or whoever the hell, you know, they all want to sort of piece together this thing. They call it a narrative for these artists.
Yeah.
And they all want to, you know, tell their version of, they all want to sort of present this artist in a certain way and make them into this thing so that, you know, they can, I guess, I'm really not sure why. I guess that's how their system works, and that's how they sell shit, you know, and sell records. But didn't have that back in the day, man. There was no narrative being told other than the stories you would hear about these guys, just like the one that Mike was telling us, and like, you know, word of mouth kind of thing. And then of course the songs and the records, that's where most of the narrative was, well, just listen to the fucking record, you know, and you don't have to have some schemed up record label thing to get people to know who you are. That's what the record's for, you know?
Yeah. Like
But I hear you, man. It's definitely, nowadays you get kind of a lot of what feels like really forced personas, I guess would be the word, with people and you know, whatever. I guess that's what works for some people, but I've always liked to, I think that's one of the things about all them old guys that makes them so great is they weren't doing any of that crap, and they were just being themselves and putting themselves out there, you know.
Yeah.
Or the good ones were anyways.
Yeah. I mean, the narrative thing, the talking points, the, you know, focus on this. I mean, I know, like, that's like no matter, even if you're not even that big of an artist, you know, you can be coached by your team or whatever to put on a certain hat, you know, a certain vibe or whatever. And, you know, it's
I think a lot of people slip into that sort of thing because whether they're new and they just don't know any better, or they've been convinced that that's what you need to do, you know, that whole deal. But I don't have a lot of patience for that, man. I get tired of it, and you just get all these manufactured personalities out of it, you know, and that stuff's not going to last, you know. That's not going to stand the test of time like some of these guys' records we've been talking about, you know.
Yeah. That's to me, it always just goes back to the record. Like, just go back to the record, go back to the music, go back to talking with the artist versus, you know, going through these different lenses and stuff. You know, one of the things you've been talking about, Mike, and of course you did that song of his. There's a few songs that I feel like you've done that are covers that are more recent, but they have that timelessness of, you know, that of more traditional stuff. Obviously, like you did Diamond Joe, which is a traditional song, and you know that doesn't feel weird next to a song that's more of a contemporary than you know, aged with time, if you will. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a balancing act, and I've been figuring this out over the past few years because I love singing those old songs and them old traditionals that have been around forever. And a lot of times they're all I feel like singing because I think they're a lot better than my songs. But at the same time, in the world of country western music, and I think especially in the world of cowboy song, it's really important to, do all them old songs and make people aware of that stuff. But it's also really important, I think, to keep it contemporary and bring something new to the table to the best of your ability. And I think a lot of people think that, they kind of get this idea of cowboy songs and they think Sons of the Pioneers and it's all sort of, the good old days and days gone by. And that's sort of just reinforcing the whole, the whole idea that, it's all, oh, that's all past now. And, we moved, those times aren't like that anymore, and they're not like that anymore. But guess what? They're still, you just ate, we just went out to wherever and got a cheeseburger. Somebody was looking after that cow, man. And there's still people out there doing it. People have been saying that, that whole way of life is dying, and people have been saying that for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And it's not dying, but it changes just like anything. Certain things about it change, certain things don't, but things about it change. And I think that should go into a lot of songwriting too, or a lot of whatever it is, whether it's your song or someone else's. It's important, I think, just to keep people aware that, like, hey, this still is this is not a dead way of life, and this is not a thing of the past. And a lot of time has gone by, and things have changed, and you see a lot of them open spaces that are synonymous with the West and kind of closing in, but at the same time, cowboys are alive and well, man. And a lot of guys I know that I'd consider to be, real top hands and the real deal, unlike myself, they love old songs, but they want to hear new stuff too. And they like hearing about shit that they do today, not just, get along little doggies and trail driving and, old song, Strawberry Roan kind of stuff, Ride Don't Paint, that stuff. They want to hear those, but they like hearing that new stuff, man. And because it's about them, and those guys are still around, and they're still, putting food on tables for the whole damn nation. So
yeah.
That's been kind of tough to find, because I like doing both. Try to do a little bit of both, traditionals, and also, approaching it with some newer stuff.
Yeah.
About from that sort of point of view, I guess.
Yeah. The the whole point on, like, everyone, I guess, to go back to narrative, the narrative that the West is gone, or, like, it's closed down, has been going on for century now. If you watch any Western movie, like, I love Westerns, but one of the, universal central themes of a lot of these movies has always been that, the West has finally been tamed, or, like, he's the last of the kind. And, there is something to it, but there's also, there's a lot of things in this way of life that there's just no other way to do it other than that way. As great as innovation has helped modernize so many things, like, there's some things are just, they have to be done manually and by hand, and that's just the way it'll be for a while.
Yeah. I think people really like, for whatever reason, they really love the whole last of the dying breed narrative. Mm-hmm. And I guess it sells or whatever, but like I said, man, there's I don't think any of that stuff's going anywhere. It's not going away, despite what people have been saying for the last 100 years. And you can talk to a lot of historians, and they'll tell you that the real untamed woolly days of the West, they lasted about one generation, and it was real short-lived. But that's the history of a whole culture, and it don't go away. It changes, but it is a culture. And there's some of that, like I said, changes, and you start to see, I guess, places where maybe at one point there was just all folks that you might think of as true blue Westerners, and now you get people moving in from other places, whether it's the East Coast or the West Coast or whatever. But there's always going to be them people that are sort of passing the torch and sort of maintaining that culture, because it's just built into you at a certain point. Mm-hmm. that's what you do. It just sort of passes down through the generations, and it'll change, and certain things about it will change, but it'll always be there. At least that's what I like to think. And I guess,
well, I mean, I
just like singing about it, you know?
I think if you, with anything really, if you search for it, you can find it, and you can find that magic over it, or the, you know, obviously there's a lot of nostalgia and magic with it, but there's also a lot of, if you want to find the hard work, I'm sure there's plenty of people you can meet go get some sweat. This episode is in part brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. While Blue Light is still closed due to the pandemic, there is a way to help A, support Blue Light, and B, get a sense of that normalcy by visiting bluelightlubbock.com, clicking on the merch tab, and getting some koozies, a vast array of t-shirts and caps, and yes, even a Blue Light flag. While it is such a bummer that live music is still on hold right now, I'm telling you, by getting some Blue Light Live merch, you're going to feel better. It just feels better wearing a t-shirt and ball cap and helping support your favorite bar. Again, that's bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab, get some merch. All right, back to the episode. Now, you know, one of my favorite songs on here, you did a talking prairie boy, and you know, that has a lot of plenty of funny little whippers and snappers and jokes and one-liners. And where were you at when you started writing that song? Because obviously you're kind of poking fun at, you know.
Yeah, I think that one was kind of it was one of them songs that I think I probably wrote. I think I had the intention of writing two different talking blueses, and they kind of got thrown in together on one, I think, is what happened with that song. And this would have been probably a couple of years ago. Because a lot of these songs, you know, as far as the originals go anyways, and I guess some of the covers too, I've been singing a lot of this stuff for a long time. It just hasn't made its way onto the tape yet. But, yeah, the Talking Prairie Boy, I think I started writing some of it back home in southwest Saskatchewan. Like the first few verses, I think, was probably written back home because I would have just been writing about home, which is something I like to do a lot. But I think talking about all the stuff with the lead, I'm almost certain that I was that I had to be in Nashville whenever that was going on, because it's sort of, you know, I wouldn't say it's exactly a true story, but it's very influenced by an encounter had at the Legion in East Nashville, post 42, I think it is, which is a great little bar, but I got a lot of opinions about the crowd there, and so I won't get into now. But yeah, that's sort of where the song, I just decided that I was going to throw them together, because I had these, you know, talking blueses are a lot of fun, and I've always been a fan of that style. Ramblin' Jack does a ton of them, and Dylan did them, and it's a real folky kind of thing, but they're just a lot of fun, and the rhyme scheme's a lot of fun, and the whole thing is meant to be, you know, I like getting comedic with stuff, and talking blueses are perfect for that sort of thing. So it was, I just kind of had a lot of fun with that one. But yeah, I think it probably would have been over the course of the last couple of years, sort of pieced together from, I'm sure, what was originally going to be two different talking blueses, you know, because they're all the same. They all have they're all kind of laid out the same way as far as, you know, the way that it, the chord progression and the way that it's, can't think of the word, but, you know, the way that it all sort of flows out. Yeah. They're really all the same. They kind of all have the same song structure, I guess is what you would say. Yeah. So they just kind of got put together. But yeah, I'm glad you like that one. That's just having a little bit of a laugh with that one.
Yeah, that like that kind of like the talking blues stuff. It feels like in that kind of structure, you're able to like really bend language a lot more. You're able to that's where you can like really make rhymes, draw them out, or like really like shoehorn them in and be real inventive more so than other songs. Like, and that's like just a
Yeah.
great way to. That's a great space for really trying to like pack in a whole lot of words or vowel or
Yeah.
and you.
There's a lot of freedom in them songs because it's funny because I think Todd Snyder recently put out a new talking blues, which he's done a ton of them too, because that's he knows his stuff and that's totally his style, which I always dig about that guy. But I think he did one recently where one of the first lines in the songs is, it's a meta kind of thing because he's singing a talking blues about talking blueses. And he says, talking blueses are easy to do. You just have to rhyme a time or two now and then, and you don't have to ever rhyme again. And then he goes, see, I can say whatever I want to now, which I think is brilliant because it's so true about those songs, and it just adds to the comedic factor of it is there's not a whole lot of rhyming going on. You got a lot of freedom with what you can say because, you don't, only have to rhyme a few lines, and then you always kind of kept that kicker on the end. There's always that last sort of little line kicker at the end of a phrase of these talking blues is that it doesn't rhyme with anything. It's kind of thrown in there for fun. So that's cool to do, man. It's just a different approach to writing, and I'm a big fan of that sort of thing.
Yeah, and of course on the liner notes, the credits there, I noticed you credit Blake to Creaky Screen Door, and
yeah, so we were getting that take, and I don't know if it was the first take or the second take, but as you know, it's just me on that track. There's no band on that or anything, no accompaniment. It's just me picking and talking. And, but my buddy, a buddy of mine from Saskatchewan, Blake Berglund, who's also a great songwriter, and he's just been a good friend of mine for a few years now. And, he was tagging along with myself in the band because, I had gone down to Texas early to stay with my friend on his ranch that I was telling you about before. And the band was going to meet up. We were all going to meet up in Wimberley. And I found out Berglund was around and figured that it'd be cool to have him. And he's just the kind of guy you want in that sort of setting. Talk about, fun records like we were talking about before. He's perfect for that. So he was hanging out and throughout the whole time, just having fun and goofing off with us. And whenever I was recording that track, I guess he had there's a screen door that's sort of, I guess it's not the main front door of the studio, but it's the one that everyone uses. It goes in the back where it goes, the hill kind of goes down the river and there's a fireplace and stuff. And I guess he had figured that maybe we were finished. So you can hear him on the track because we kept it. I thought it was perfect. You can hear him open that damn screen door right towards the end of the song. And then you can sort of hear him close it because he realizes that he's fucked up, and then he walked in on the take. So you sort of hear him slowly close it, and then at the very end of the song, you hear it open again, and you hear him walk in, and we all kind of start laughing and pointing at him and stuff. But it's just like we were talking about before. That's the kind of thing I love to hear on a record when I'm listening to stuff. I just like when little things like that are left in because it just sort of makes you feel like you're there almost, and like you say, it adds a lot of personality to the track. Whereas, some people would probably call that unprofessionalism, but to me, that makes a record from that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put that down, and I felt like I should attribute that to him in the liner notes. So if you read the liner notes on Talking Blues, you can see it says me, vocals and guitar, and then it says Blake Berglund, screen door or Creaky Screen Door or whatever it says.
Yeah. The thing, it's all about the funness of the record. like there is that live element, but it's almost what
Yeah.
I've kind of described as is more of a, I'm somewhere in the house and you walk into the kitchen and y'all have just magically set up shop right there and started playing, or you walk outside and there's the campfire and y'all are just sitting there, So like that to me,
Yeah.
like that's what it feels like that kind of live setting versus, you guys on stage even.
Yeah. Well, I'm real glad to hear that. We sort of recorded this album in two different setups as far as using the rooms, and there's a lot of the rooms in that studio, which is really, it's an old house, Yellow Dog, just a little ranch house, brick ranch house. And they've got different, rooms that you can close and sort of get some isolation sound wise. But, we left a lot of shit open. We left a lot of doors open to other rooms, and we'd set up, in the main living room, we'd have a big room mic and try to capture a lot of space on the record. Cause I've always liked that on a record as opposed to, things sounding real compressed. And, we sort of went at it two ways because, about half of the record is me and the band, and it's a little more, there's a little more going on. And then the other half of the record is kind of just, as more of a solo, maybe accompaniment here or there. And the way we did it was, all that, the songs where it's kind of just me and maybe, somebody else, maybe it's Pat on the dobro or Jake on the harmonica, and there's no rhythm section or anything else going on. Those were all live, as opposed to overdubs. It was more of just to stand around this omni mic kind of thing, stand around a big ribbon room mic and play into it, as opposed to, tracking the rhythm section and the vocals and stuff, and then getting all the other stuff, all the lead stuff separate for overdubs and whatnot. So, I kind of was going for one part, studio album, full band setup with still a lot of space and room. And then, one part more kind of just sitting around a campfire kind of thing, or I was calling them the cow camp tracks because I wanted them to just sound like, maybe two or three guys sitting around cow camp and picking out an old song or something. So that was kind of and again, that was sort of a balancing thing to try to make that work between the busy songs that have a little bit more going on, and then the more pulled back, kind of reined in stuff. Stripped down stuff. But that was my intention, I guess, was trying to combine them two things and then just sort of pepper all that in on both sides of the record.
Yeah. It's I mean, I really like it. I love just the vibe and the mood of the record. Also, I was going to ask about you did that song with Vincent Neil Emerson, Roadrunner, was that recorded around this time too?
This would have been, well, you know what? That would have been, I think maybe before. Yeah, that would have been right around when we got to do Willie's Picnic last summer, I guess. So this would have been just before that, because I had to fly down from Texas to do. I had to fly down to Texas from home that summer because I was recording a few things with some buddies there, and one of them was Vincent. And he had sort of a rough track of Roadrunner, which he had written a while back, and I'd heard him playing it on some tour we were doing together. And would kind of always sing along with him. It's just catchy, good melody. He's real good about that, about melodies. Got some good ones. Yeah. So he decided that he wanted me to sing a harmony on it, which I can sing a little harmony. I mean, I really don't know what I'm doing while I'm doing it, but I can kind of, just listen and kind of develop a harmony line. I learned to sing harmonies, my version of it, by from a pretty young age, listening to the band, who's one of my, a lot of my favorite records are the band, and those guys were not singing perfect harmony. They were kind of just doing what I like to do, which is finding the right part that fits in between, you know, whatever else it might be. And they were kind of just using their kind of, you know, going by ear. And that's sort of what I try to do too. And of course I've worked on that throughout the years, but anyways, he wanted me to sing harmonies on that record. So he had sort of a rough track of Roadrunner and I sang over it, and he ended up re-recording a lot of it, but he kept my vocals from whenever we did that last summer. I guess it would have been last July or last end of June. And he kept it and ended up putting it on the final cut of that song, which I'm glad he did. I think it's a real good song, and I'm a big fan of Vincent Says, you know, so
yeah,
it's cool to get to do that with him.
Yeah, I just love like that first image of, you know, I pluck a feather from my tail. Like that's just like the perfect.
He's a good writer, man. He's a writing son of a bitch. I mean, he'll text me out of the blue, and it'll be like 3 days in a row, and they're all new songs. You know, just text me in the evening or whatever, middle of the day, and hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And the kid's been on a damn roll lately. Mm-hmm. And I call him kid, and he's older than I am, but you know, he's like a brother to me. I love the guy to death, and man, he can write. He's got that part figured out for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it was about last year. He was in town, and we did an episode, and he's just like, I don't know. You can, I don't know. He like salt of the earth kind of guy. You know, you can just like have that any kind of conversation, whatever subject really, and he's going to conversate with you. You know, and
yeah, Vince. I always say that if you can't get along with that guy, then there's probably not a whole lot of people that you'll get along with, because he's everybody's friend. You know, the second you meet him, he's your buddy. But he also could, you know, as far as what's, you know, I think a lot of people in the music industry get caught up, like we were talking about before with personas and stuff. They get caught up with how they're presenting themselves and, you know, being cool and stuff, or wanting to be a certain way. And Vince doesn't have that in him, which is something that I figured out pretty quick getting to know him. And I love that about him. He's himself, you know, he doesn't much care if you like it or not. And I love that about him, man. He's consistently Vince, you know. Yeah. He ain't trying to impress nobody. If you make a friend out of him, he'll be your friend for life, but he's going to be himself, you know, and I love that about the guy, man. I think you can hear it in his songs too. You can hear it in his records and in his music, and that's what everybody should be striving for. I don't think it is, but it's what it should be.
Yeah. You hear it especially like in the song like 7 Come 11, like his vocals.
Yeah.
There's like some kind of just pain in there, like that. Mm-hmm. That he in a song like that, you can just feel like that kind of just that pain. It's sort of like in the same way he taps into the same thing that like Ray Wiley Hubbard taps into when he's singing a song about gambling. And but then of course also at the same time, like, you know, Willie Nelson's Wall, like, you know, that's just like, that's another little fun little song, and you know, he's jovial in that, and I don't know, I think there's a lot of nuance, I guess is what I'm saying, in his vocals.
Yeah, it's not you know, there might be folks out there, Austin, Nashville, wherever, that kind of have maybe right in a similar strain as guys like Vince, but that's a hard mark to hit, and you got to be honest about it if you want to do it right. And he's got it, man. He's got it right on. I figured that out pretty quick, and you know, we've been buddies. I guess I probably met him maybe about 3 years ago now, something like that, 2 or 3 years ago. Which isn't a long time, but I feel like I've known him a long time. He's good people.
Yeah. I don't think he talked about it during the podcast, but he had mentioned this is typical New Slang fashion is, you know, after we stop recording, he tells me this great story about y'all seeing Ramblin' Jack in, I guess it was Fort Worth or Dallas, and like it was not many people there in a small room, Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was there with him.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Yeah.
I'm thinking of the same thing. It was in Fort Worth at a little tiny upstairs joint. The kind of venue you buy your tickets at the door and you climb up a bunch of flights of stairs to get to this little, almost like a speakeasy, I guess, little bar. Real small room, like maybe 50 people max capacity, maybe. I doubt it even, maybe more like 40 or 30. But we went to go see him. We wrangled tickets and went to go see him. And it was pretty surreal. I mean, I believe that was my first time seeing Ramblin' Jack in person. So Vince and me both. It's something else. I think I'm guessing that's probably the same story because it sounds like it. But yeah, we went to go see him and just kind of sat there with our jaws on the floor, you know.
Yeah, yeah. The just, you know, there's always the whole, you know, don't meet your heroes or anything like that. But you know, a lot of times I think I don't even know if I abide by that rule, you know, because a lot of times you meet a lot of these people and if you like their music, you know, you can. There's
exceptions to every rule, and if anyone is the exception to that rule, it's Ramblin' Jack Elliott, because I mean this is a guy that is so. It blows my mind to think about him still being around because he lived through so damn much and covered so much ground and knew everybody, and everybody adored this guy. I mean, he was everybody's idol, even though he himself never made it bigger necessarily per se, which is another one of my favorite things about him. You know, he didn't want to. You could tell he didn't want that. He just wanted to run around the world and the country and sail and cowboy and all the things that Ramblin' Jack does. Yeah. But I'd say he is the exception to that rule if anybody is, because he might as well be from a different planet with, you know, his story and where he comes from. And you can tell talking to him too. Ramblin' Jack will talk to anybody. I've seen him now the past couple of years at the poetry gathering in Elko, Nevada, because he loves to go to that. And he'll just be wandering around the streets or in one of the diners there in Elko, and anybody can come up to him. He'll talk to anyone. You know, he doesn't. It's like he doesn't know who he is really. But yeah, if you have the opportunity to meet Ramblin' Jack, I mean, beyond seeing him play, obviously, but you have the opportunity to walk up to that guy, talk to him, go do it, because he's one of them guys, again, that you don't have to say anything to Ramblin' Jack or guys like that. You don't have to really say much. You just start him up on something and wait for him to take off on something, and then you sit back and shut the hell up and listen and just, you know, live in that moment, because it's a rare moment and it's a beautiful moment. And we got to do that. Vince and I got to do that a little bit that night in Fort Worth. And he was there with Larry Mahan too, which was pretty damn cool. So I got to meet Larry Mahan and Ramblin' Jack in the same night. Yeah. Felt like I was in a Guy Clark song.
Yeah, it was definitely that night, because now that you mentioned Larry being there.
Yeah, he was there, and they sang together. I think they sang "You Are My Sunshine" together, but it wasn't to the crowd. They were like singing it to each other, which was like, just, again, you just feel like you're a fly on the wall in some amazing moment, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I always love whenever you when you interview one of these guys who, for example, like probably, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I interviewed Billy Joe Shaver, and we talked for about an hour or so. Yeah. I probably had like 10 minutes of dialogue, and the rest was him talking, and it was, you know, just me listening. Yeah. There's no other way I'd want it, you know, just to hear those guys.
Yeah, talk. Those are the gold moments, and you know, you keep those with you. I can remember. I don't have the best memory, I'll admit. I'm admittedly pretty bad with remembering stuff, but any moments I've had like that with guys like Billy Joe or Ramblin' Jack, you know, or Ian Tyson or John Prine or anyone I've been lucky enough to, you know, be around for, even if it's just 5 minutes. I don't think I'll ever forget those, because those are, I mean, how could you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, I think that's probably a good capper right there. It's been good talking with you
Cool.
this afternoon.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
Okay, that does it for this week. I hope you really enjoyed this one. Be sure to check out Colter Wall's upcoming album, Western Swing Waltzes and Other Punchy Songs, out Friday, August 28th. Check out episode partners Desert Door Texas Soto and the Blue Light Live. All right, we'll see you next week.